It turns out that liberal voices do not have the same voice when it comes to the Charlie Kirk tragedy. In fact, there is substantial discourse on the Democrat side right now, and I have the blow-by-blow details for you next, including a harsh denouncement of any canonization for the white nationalist hero. I'll begin this report with someone who's at the receiving end of that denouncement, journalist Ezra Klein, a prominent liberal voice with lots of history with the Democrat Party. But today he finds himself under fire for an opinion piece he penned for the New York Times entitled, "Charlie Kirk Was Practicing Politics the Right Way." I'll share some of it with you, and then I'll share the epic backlash his kindly worded article received.
The foundation of a free society is the ability to participate in politics without fear of violence. To lose that is to risk losing everything. Charlie Kirk and his family just lost everything. As a country, we came a step closer to losing everything, too. You can dislike much of what Kirk believed, and the following statement is still true. Kirk was practicing politics in exactly the right way. He was showing up to campuses and talking with anyone who would talk to him. He was one of the era's most effective practitioners of persuasion. When the left thought its hold on the hearts and minds of college students was nearly absolute, Kirk showed up again and again to break it. Slowly, then all at once, he did. College-age voters shifted sharply right in the 2024 election. That was not all Kirk's doing, but he was central in laying the groundwork for it. I did not know Kirk, and I am not the right person to eulogize him, but I envied what he built. A taste for disagreement is a virtue in a democracy. Liberalism could use more of his moxie and fearlessness. In the inaugural episode of his podcast, Governor Gavin Newsom of California hosted Kirk, admitting that his son was a huge fan. What a testament to Kirk's project. On social media, I've seen mostly decent reactions to Kirk's murder. There is grief and shock from both the left and the right, but I've seen two forms of reaction that are misguided, however comprehensible the rage or horror that provoked them. One is a move on the left to wrap Kirk's death around his views. After all, he defended the Second Amendment, even admitting it meant accepting innocent deaths. Another is on the right to turn his murder into a justification for an all-out war, a Reichstag fire for our time. Kirk and I were on different sides of most political arguments. We were on the same side on the continued possibility of American politics. It is supposed to be an argument, not a war. It is supposed to be won with words, not ended with bullets. I wanted Kirk to be safe for his sake, but I also wanted him to be safe for mine and for the sake of our larger shared project. The same is true for Shapiro, for Hoffman, for Hortman, for Thompson, for Trump, for Pelosi, for Whitmer. We are all safe, or none of us are.
Those are just a few paragraphs. For the full story, visit the New York Times website. Okay, now might be the time to start picking sides. Do you agree with Klein that Kirk was practicing politics the right way? If not, you'll want to hear this harsh rebuttal from Elie Mystal of The Nation, who penned, "How to Canonize a White Supremacist," on the brutal murder of Charlie Kirk, the certain blowback, and this country's raging gun problem. And let's pick it up with...
When we look at what values Klein supports through the avatar of Kirk, we see that Kirk was practicing the most divisive form of politics possible. Kirk's goals were to outrage, not enrich. He practiced the politics of bullying and threatening. He called empathy a made-up word and said that Black women lacked the processing power of their white counterparts. Did Kirk have a right to say these things? Absolutely. Should he have been killed for practicing politics in the way that he did? Absolutely not, but to say that practicing politics in his way was exactly right is frankly a disgusting statement from Mr. Klein. Klein's article goes on to condemn political violence. I agree with that, of course, but condemning political violence as an op-ed columnist is a little bit like condemning the French Revolution when you're a member of the aristocracy. It is in our best interest to condemn the violent murder of public figures because we all know we might be next. That doesn't make us empathetic or graceful or more enlightened than the least common denominator on social media. It makes us self-interested. Moreover, it is entirely possible to condemn political violence and mourn the victims of political violence without lauding the political influence of the victims of the violence. Klein fails that should-be basic test. Charlie Kirk represented the very worst American political discourse had to offer, and I wish he were still alive so I could tell that to him, to his face, over and over again. I wish he lived long enough to see everything that he worked to achieve crumble all around him. You see what I did there, Ezra? It's really not hard.
For the full article, visit thenation.com. This is a fascinating debate because it asks the question, do we only remember Kirk for his racist views, or do we acknowledge his democratic style that gave thousands of people the opportunity to counter his awful rhetoric without interruption? I have some thoughts on that are embedded in a video from yesterday about Trump's weaponization of Charlie Kirk's death, and I'll link to that at the end. So instead of repeating them here, I'll give the final word to Bernie Sanders. His thoughts and wisdom about the murder of Charlie Kirk is trending today and getting kudos from both sides.
Thank you very much for joining me. I want to say a few words regarding the terrible murder yesterday of Charlie Kirk, someone who I strongly disagreed with on almost every issue, but who was clearly a very smart and effective communicator and organizer, and someone unafraid to get out into the world and engage the public. My condolences go out to his wife and his family. A free and democratic society, which is what America is supposed to be about, depends upon the basic premise that people can speak out, organize, and take part in public life without fear, without worrying that they might be killed, injured, or humiliated for expressing their political views. In fact, that is the essence of what freedom is about and what democracy is about. You have a point of view, that's great. I have a point of view that is different than yours, that's great. Let's argue it out. We make our case to the American people at the local, state, and federal levels, and we hold free elections in which the people decide what they want. That's called freedom and democracy. And I want as many people as possible to participate in that process without fear. Freedom and democracy is not about political violence. It is not about assassinating public officials. It is not about trying to intimidate people who speak out on an issue. Political violence, in fact, is political cowardice. It means that you cannot convince people of the correctness of your ideas, and you have to impose them through force. Every American, no matter what one's political point of view may be, must condemn all forms of political violence and all forms of intimidation. We must welcome and respect dissenting points of view. That's what our Constitution is about. That's what our Bill of Rights is about. That, in fact, is what freedom is about. The murder of Charlie Kirk is part of a disturbing rise in political violence that threatens to hollow out public life and make people afraid of participating. From the January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol, to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, to the attack on Paul Pelosi, to the attempted kidnapping of Michigan Governor Whitmer, to the murder of Minnesota's Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, and her husband, to the arson attack on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, to the shooting of United Health Executive Brian Thompson, and the shooting several years ago of Representative Steve Scalise, this chilling rise in violence has targeted public officials across the political spectrum. Sadly, this is not a new phenomenon. We all remember the assassinations of President Kennedy, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Senator Robert F. Kennedy, John Lennon, Medgar Evers, and the attempted assassinations of President Ronald Reagan and Alabama Governor George Wallace. This is a difficult and contentious moment in American history. Democracy in our country and throughout the world is under attack. And there are a lot of reasons for that which need serious discussion. But bottom line, if we honestly believe in democracy, if we believe in freedom, all of us must be loud and clear. Political violence, regardless of ideology, is not the answer and must be condemned. Thank you very much.